Mangroves are a cool addition to the saltwater hobby, and in this week we're going to be setting up a really interesting mangrove grow out for the King Tide Corals channel. Let's get into it. What's going on, Reefers? Welcome back to another episode. My name's Blaine, and this is the King Tide Corals channel. Thanks so much for tuning in this week. It's going to be a really fun video that has been in the works for quite some time, and finally we can get it out to you guys. Now this week we're going to be setting up a really cool mangrove grow out that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, but due to the fact that we've been moving, I haven't been able to do so. But now that we've settled into the office space, we're finally going to be able to get it going. As I just mentioned, we're in the office space here. This is a great place where we're going to be able to have more tanks and just be able to create more content for you and myself. It's going to be really fun to try out new things with you guys. And if you guys haven't done so already, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you guys don't miss out on any future upload. Now that we've settled into the new office, I'm excited to finally get this mangrove grow out built out and ready for you guys. In this week's episode, we're going to show you guys what I ended up doing with my mangroves and how I set up this little grow out system. I'm excited to share with you guys, but let's go ahead and flash back to a couple weeks ago when we received the mangroves.
Flashback.
Okay, we got the box in from Florida, so we'll go ahead and open it up. Let's see how everything's looking. I'm interested to see how the mangroves are doing since they went through transit and everything, but we shall see. So here they are. Here are the mangroves that I got off of eBay, and I originally had ordered 3, and it looks like I got in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. So big shout out to them for sending me some extra ones. They look really good. So we'll go ahead and get them unwrapped, get them into a bucket, and get them ready to start moving into their little grow out home. So here are the mangroves I got from the eBay purchase. There's some really nice ones. There's about 7 in total that I ended up grabbing. I only originally had bought 3 from the website. The only root damage I saw that came in was these 2 pieces of root right here. I'm hoping that doesn't affect the health of whichever mangroves those broke off of, but overall these look really good, really healthy. I'm gonna go ahead, get them into a bucket and have them standing by until I have the sand and all the remaining things I need to kind of build out that grow out. So let's go ahead and put these into a bucket. So I grabbed a vase and I filled it up with just strictly fresh water, RODI water. I'm gonna go ahead and put those in there, have them stand by until we kind of figure out what exactly we want to do for a grow out, and once I get the sand, we can kind of build everything out. So let's go ahead and put all of these mangroves into this vase. So here are the mangroves. I've set them over in my little plant corner here in the kitchen. I'm really excited about them. They're looking really good. I'm going to give them a chance to kind of get settled in. I'm sure they'll open up a little bit better. The leaves will kind of spread out after they've been in shipping. I'm sure they're not super happy, but everything's looking really good. Not a ton of root damage, which is really good to see. There was only about 2 little pieces of roots that plucked off, but I'm gonna go ahead and start looking around, figuring out a best container, and then waiting on the sand to arrive here probably tomorrow, and then we'll build out our little mangrove grow out system. Really excited about this, and I wanna say a big shout out to the user on eBay that I bought these from. I'll leave a link down in the description below so you guys can check out this area where you guys can snag some really nice mangroves like these.
End of flashback.
Now before we get into details about talking about the mangrove grow out that I've started myself, let's talk a little bit more about the importance of them in the hobby and how they're utilized in our home aquariums. As for the trees themselves, they're usually utilized for the excess nutrients in our system. Much like starting up a refugium with macroalgae, these trees can be utilized to take out excess nutrients in a tank. I'm not going to say they're the best form of nutrient export, but they can definitely help out. Whereas if you have just one, it won't be nearly as efficient as if you have a couple or a group of them. There's a lot of really cool systems out there with mangroves incorporated, and one that really sticks out to me is Inappropriate Reefers, Moki's 17-gallon macroalgae and soft coral tank. This has a 3-year-old mangrove that he's had in it for quite some time that is really starting to grow out and look really nice and full and mature. It's probably one of the bigger ones that we see on Instagram, and he started to bonsai it in a way that's a really cool thing to see. I'll definitely leave a link right here that you guys can see, and also a link down below to one of his videos that talks about his mangroves in general. Overall though, these mangroves are utilized for nutrient export, but as well they can be used for aesthetically pleasing features to add to a home aquarium. Now let's talk a little bit about maintenance and upkeep for these mangroves in our home aquarium. I'm not going to go into a ton of details because you guys should do the proper amount of research if you want to keep these in your tank or system. Now I'm going to talk about the most important things in my opinion, and then we'll go from there. The first thing I want to focus on is light. These mangroves need the proper amount of light because they require light for photosynthesis. Now that they get that light, they're going to want it from either a window that has quite a bit of sunlight coming in, or setting up a grow light above them, or having your aquarium display light above them as well. As long as they're getting a proper amount of light throughout a cycle in a day, that should work out just fine. The other thing to mention is that they're going to want to have a substrate to grow from, usually so that they can kind of hunker down their roots and kind of grow out from there. The other thing to mention is that they're going to usually not want to live in the salinity levels that we keep our tanks at. At 1.025 to 1.026, it may be just a little too salty for these mangroves, but what they usually do is they secrete the salt up to their leaves. And one important thing to focus on is that you spray down your leaves with RODI water and make sure that they're not caking over with salt over time. As for that though, I'm not going to go into much more details about aquarium upkeep with these mangroves, but you guys can do your research whenever looking at setting these up in your tank.
Later.
So we have all the supplies to get ready and set up our little mangrove grow out. It's going to be a really cool little project. I got this big fish bowl that I'm going to be using, some Carib Sea, Fiji pink sand, and then I have the mangroves right here. There's also a beta heater in here as well. I don't know how much I'm going to be needing the heater, especially down here in California. This room stays nice and warm, so I'm thinking that it's going to be probably around the right temperature that the mangroves need to be able to kind of stay happy and healthy. So let's go ahead and get into putting the sand into the bowl here. We'll put a small little layer, then we'll start placing the mangroves, then we'll put the majority of the sand in, get the mangroves planted, and we'll have ourselves a cool little mangrove grow out. Let's get into it. Now that I have all the mangroves set up in the bowl, I'm gonna go ahead and open up this bag all the way, take the majority or the rest of the sand and start filling in all the other spaces. I kind of like having to be able to see some of the roots. It's kind of cool, but for now we're gonna go ahead and just start covering things up, and then we'll start filling up with a little bit of water as well. Now that we have all the sand in, I'm gonna go ahead and start moving the sand around, packing it in nicely so that way we can start filling up with some water. So I've gone ahead and planted all the mangroves. As you guys can see, I put a layer of sand and then I dug out little holes, placed the roots into the holes, and then put more sand on top of them. I do kind of like the fact that some of the roots are showing. Obviously in the mangrove natural kind of scene, they always have the mangrove roots kind of standing up and out of the substrate. But I think it's kind of a good place for them to kind of hold fast and kind of hang out in the sand for now. So now that we've got everything planted, let's go ahead and add some water. As for the water, we're gonna be doing RODI water first. They've been staying in just fresh water. I was adding a little bit of salt water here and there, but before the travel down here, I stuck strictly to RODI water. They seem to be really liking it. So for the time being, we're gonna go ahead and fill this up with some RODI water, and then that's just gonna be it for the time. As we kind of get the lagoon back up and running, we're gonna go ahead and start adding more salt water to them, and then maybe we'll be able to have this at full salinity at some point. But I'm in no rush to get them at full salinity because I'm not gonna be adding them to any system anytime soon, but they're kind of in their own little enclosure or grow out here. So it's gonna be fun to just have them in the RODI water, see them kind of flourish and see them grow. I did see a lot of new root growth, which is a really good thing to see. And I saw a lot of the hairs kind of starting to stick out on the roots as well. So that's really good signs that they're doing well. And another thing I got from Inland Reef, Tyler, thanks again, big shout out to him for helping me out throughout this whole process, is that if the stalks are squishy, that's a bad sign that their health isn't doing so good. So all the stalks are nice and hard, so that's a really good sign. So let's go ahead and start adding some water. Of course, as I was adding the water, it seemed as though one of the mangroves got knocked over, so we're gonna go ahead, resituate that and get it back into place. Now that we have the sand in, the mangroves are placed, and the water is added, we're gonna let everything settle in. I know the water's a little cloudy right now, but once it clears up, it's gonna look really cool to see the little stalks kind of shooting out of the sand and kind of creating this interesting little grow out. I know it's not very complex, it's really simple, but I wanted to make something that was easy enough that anyone can make it themselves, but also something unique that I haven't really seen that often. So really happy I was able to share this with you guys, but we'll go ahead and check in with you guys here soon once the water's settled down and it's clear. So we'll get back to you soon.
2 hours later.
So the sand and water has cleared up and everything's looking pretty good in this little mangrove bowl grow out. It actually turned out a lot better than what I was hoping, and I'm really happy about it. I want to hear from you guys down below in the comments of what you think, but overall I think it looks pretty good, and I'm very surprised at how well these mangroves traveled. So hope you guys enjoyed this little setup of a little mangrove grow out. I know I didn't go into a bunch of details of this whole system and mangroves in general, but I wanted to just show you guys what I've been kind of holding on to and wanting to set up over time. I'll definitely be giving you guys updates throughout the weeks and letting you guys know how these guys are doing. But for now, they look really happy, and I think overall the little grow out tank looks pretty good. That's it for this week's video, guys. Really happy I was finally able to get these mangroves down to California and get them all situated in their little grow out. It's gonna be really cool to see how they do, and hopefully over time I can start transitioning them to full salinity. I'm in no rush though, as I mentioned before. They're not gonna be added to any tank anytime soon, and I'm just kind of having them as a cool little addition to the office, and it's gonna be really fun to see how they do. I'm really surprised, honestly, how well they managed to travel down. I was kind of worried that I would need to buy all new mangroves, but these are all the original ones you guys saw from when I bought them off eBay, and they're still doing really well, and they've actually grown new roots, and they seem to be pretty happy. So we'll definitely give you guys an update here soon on how everything's going with the mangrove tank, but for now, thanks for tuning in this week, guys, and if you like what you see, be sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already, and until next week, happy reefing.